And we welcome in now political analyst Rich Rubino. Rich, it's always great to see you. I know you're a historian, and when you consider tensions all across the globe now, thinking about China and Taiwan, namely, how closely are these talks being watched? How does the outcome here potentially work to promote peace or aggression all around the world?
Well, the obvious answer is that they're watched all over the world. I think people are trying to see see Donald Trump's dexterity in terms of being a mediator, in terms of using the United States' good offices. But it seems to me that the real sticking point here is that Russia wants there to be land swaps. And under the Ukrainian constitution, the only way that they could potentially do that would have to be a referendum amongst the population. So the President Zelensky, the Ukrainian government do not have plenipotentiary powers to agree to that. They can not, like Donald Trump, for example, can sometimes do executive agreements. He would need the support of the people. And right now, if you look at any poll, the vast majority of the population of Ukraine is opposed to land swaps.
Right. President Trump, he's made it no secret. He wants this war to come to an end. He pledged to work this out very early in his presidency. He's taken some heat for the timeline that's played out thus far. And it seems by the day he has more and more political skin in the game, so to speak. What are the stakes for him in particular as you see them now?
Well, when he was running for president, he basically said that when he was elected, before he was even inaugurated, during the transition period, within 24 hours, he could negotiate some sort of agreement, similar to Dwight Eisenhower back in 1952. He said, I will go to Korea and I will negotiate an agreement to end the Korean War. And he basically did that. Although it wasn't necessarily a win, he did negotiate an end to the Korean War. I think that in Donald Trump's case, obviously, politically, he's going to be judged by the American people based on his standing on the economy, not necessarily foreign policy, unless there are ground troops in a major war. But that being said, he did make a promise to end the war. And I think the American people, and I think will certainly hold his feet to the fire, even though it's a secondary or tertiary concern to most Americans.
Yeah, well, that's a great perspective there. At the same time, we have Israel's growing frustration over the war in Gaza. That's now erupting in some nationwide protests. We've been following those closely as well. How might an outcome or potentially a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia impact the next steps in dealing with that conflict specifically as well?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Obviously, Donald Trump has a lot on his plate. I think he'd like to spend as much time on Gaza that he is on the Ukraine. But obviously he has time constraints. He's only one person, but he does have certainly aides that are trying to work on that. I think what this is showing, though, is a myth. What's going on in Israel and the protests is a myth of the monolith. I think there are a lot of people in America that believe that the Israeli people are behind the Netanyahu administration. In actuality, Israel, if you can believe it, there are 120 seats in the Knesset, and 13 of them are held by different political parties. There are conservatives, there are liberals, there are moderates, and there is definitely an anti-war. There's an anti-war movement which is currently ascendant in Israel, and now I think we're seeing in the United States that Israel is not monolithically for the incursion into Gaza.
Yeah, we've certainly seen split there, no doubt. We know the Russian economy at the same time, just heading back to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, it's under pressure. President Trump has taken hits for not following through with some of the harsh economic punishments that he's promised. We did see those sanctions in India. Some have noted some of the punishments may lead to increases, though, here in the U.S. That President Trump doesn't want to see, especially as we creep now closer to the midterm. So what's your read on the balancing act he's weighing right now in the financial sector?
Yes, and certainly that's where it definitely comes to the economy and certainly tariffs. I think that the American people are starting to feel the effects of the tariffs. It certainly has not destroyed the economy, although some people said that it would do that. But certainly when you're putting any sort of economic sanctions, whether you're putting it on other countries or whether you are putting tariffs, which potentially could disbenefit the American people, there's obviously going to be a counter reaction. Every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction. So I think that there's going to be a lot of opposition. Obviously, India, Mr. Modi was somebody who's very much was an ally of Donald Trump, but because he was buying Russian oil and Donald Trump made that promise, he had to essentially increase the tariffs on India.
Right. We've got about 30 seconds left, but I do want to ask you this. Another major question mark is, will Putin follow through with his promises? Is he just prolonging this process? What might the consequences be if the president believes those are his motivations? What might they need to be?
It's very interesting. What is his motivation? Right now, he seems to have maximalist ambitions, meaning that he does not seem to want to compromise. He seems to say, we want right now Ukraine to say that they're not going to be in NATO, to say that they're going to be neutral. We want land slops. We want the Crimea. We want the Donbass region. And I think that if that is his demand and he is not willing to compromise, then it's going to be a very tall order for Donald Trump and for Mr. Witkoff and the entire United States negotiating regime to try to get him to negotiate to try to get him to have some sort of a settlement with the Ukrainians. And contrastly, it's going to be very hard to get the Ukrainians because, as I say, in order for them to do a land swap, it's very unpopular right now. Zelensky's against it. And if there were to be a referendum, my guess is it would probably be defeated rather soundly.
Yeah. All right. Rich Rubino, a lot to monitor. Thank you, as always, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.